right, so welcome everyone. We are so glad to start with this first meeting of the Community Advisory Group and the Environmental Justice Coalition for the Clark County Climate Changing Planning Project. So thank you everyone for joining. This is kind of our first orientation meeting, and we're looking forward to getting started with everyone. Sorry, my screen went full and I'm trying to get back to where I was. Okay. All right, so my name is Sylvia Chbroski, and I'll be helping to facilitate the Community Advisory Group, and we'll be helping with facilitating this meeting today along with Ben Duncan, and you'll meet a ton of the project team later on today. So if we go to the next slide here, I'll just do a few introductory pieces and then we'll just dive into the meeting. I just want to tell everyone that the work here is funded by Washington's Climate Commitment Act, and you're going to see this logo in a lot of the work that we're doing together. So thank you, Washington Department of Commerce, for funding this work, for this great effort. I'm going to hand it over to Jenna Kay, Clark County's project manager, for a quick welcome, and then you'll meet some of the project team that you'll be working with for the next year and a half on this project, or year. Hopefully it won't be a year and a half. And then we'll dive into some of the content for today. So Jenna, over to you.
Thanks, Sylvia. Hi, everyone. As Sylvia said, my name is Jenna Kay, and I'm a land use planner with the Clark County Community Planning Department. And I'm serving as the county's project manager for this project. But really, before we dive in further today, just really want to thank you all for your participation in this project. I'm really excited to work with you all over the next year or so. And know we're doing it'll be hard, but really good work during that time. So really looking forward to it. I'd like to begin project team introductions. And I will start with introducing some folks with the county, if we go to the next slide. And folks, as I introduce you, if you can just wave to save us a little bit of time, you'll hear from us more later as we get going. So to start off, I'd like to introduce Oliver Orgiaco, who is the Community Planning Director for the county. And Oliver, I think, is working on joining the meeting, so you'll hear from him later. Oliver is overseeing those of us staff working on the project, so we may see him from time to time at our meetings. And also joining me on the project team are Gary Albrecht, who is a transportation planner in community planning, and Amy Koski, who is the Built Environment Coordinator in public health. And Lauren Henriksen also works in public health, and she is helping us with the Environmental Justice Coalition public engagement work. And now Sylvia is going to introduce the consultant team.
Yeah, sure. So with our consultant team, we have myself, Sylvia Chbroski. I'll be facilitating the Community Advisory Group, and Ben Duncan, who you'll hear from later today too, will be facilitating the Environmental Justice Coalition. And then Nicole Matilde is our process manager. She's going to hold everything together and probably be a point of contact for a lot of folks here. And then Grant Simmons is on the line as project support and tech support. And if you need anything, please do send him a message if you're having any trouble with the Zoom platform. And then we also have Tracy Lunsford, who is the overall project manager and really working on the greenhouse gas reduction sub-element as part of the climate element, and Dana Hellman, who will be working primarily on the resilience sub-element. So really great project team, and excited to be with you here today. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll just remind everyone of why are we here. So you all, committee members, did a lot of work sending in your applications and becoming part of the EJC and the CAG. And I got a chance to read through some of the CAG applications, and it's just such a robust group and so much expertise. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you. And today is hopefully an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit more. And Ben had an opportunity to chat with a lot of the EJC members in advance of this meeting. So hopefully we can all spend some time getting to know each other today. And we also want to spend some time today just getting grounded in the work. So you'll get some good overviews of what is this project, what are we trying to accomplish together, and we'll also walk through your roles as the EJC and the CAG. How are you going to work together as advisory groups for this process? And we'll also have some time at the end of the meeting for the Environmental Justice Coalition to begin working on your public engagement work plans. And on the next slide, we have just our run through of the agenda, which you should have gotten in advance of today's meeting. So we're doing our welcome and intros now. Then we'll have some time for members to just quickly say hello and what brings you here. Ben will facilitate that, and it'll be a lightning round to say hello to each other. And then Jenna will provide some project purpose and context, so some background information so we all have the same content. And then after a break, I'll go over the process. So how are the CAG and the EJC going to work together? What are your roles? We also have opportunity for public comment today. So I know we have some members of the public here, and we'll explain how public comment will work a little bit later. And then we'll just kind of wrap up with your next steps and some really important homework assignments. And then the EJC will have some opportunity to work on their community engagement work plans. So that's our plan for today. On the next slide, we have some resources listed and linked. So we hope that you all just kind of have access to these, and you'll get a chance to see these in the PowerPoint later, but there's a project webpage where you can get a lot of documents related to this effort. And then also 2 separate web pages for the EJC and the CAG. So that's where all of your meeting materials and agendas will be, so that you can follow along with the process. We also have Jenna's contact information here, so good point of contact. And if you are a member of the public and want to get notifications about this project as it moves forward, we encourage you to sign up for that with this link that we'll also, I think, put in the chat so that you can sign up to get project updates. All right, next slide. Okay, now for the fun part, how to use this fun technology that we're all using here. So we appreciate everyone joining this webinar today. And if you are a member of the committee, you should be joined as a panelist so that you can participate in the conversation. If you are not, if you are a committee member and you're not joined as a panelist yet, please raise your hand in the platform, and we'll make sure to get you moved over. And if you are a member of the public, then you're joined here as a member of the public, as an attendee, and we'll talk about how to do public comment later on. Throughout the meeting, we ask that you just kind of stay on mute when you're not speaking to reduce background noise. And we encourage use of video so we feel like we're in the same room together. So do use video if you can. And when we get to discussion comment portions, we'll ask you to use the raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen to just get in the queue and make your comments. And if you are joined by phone only, then you can press *9 on the phone to speak and to unmute yourself. If you're having any tech issues, either send a chat message to Grant Simmons, who is our tech extraordinaire today, or an email at gsimmons@kearnswest.com. And then when we get to discussion periods and Q&A, we just ask that you kind of say your name and whatever you want to say to identify yourself so that we all can kind of get to know each other. And we have, 2.5 hours together, so move around, take care of yourself as needed throughout the meeting. All right. So on the next slides, we just have some reminders of how to use the Zoom platform. Some of you use Zoom every day, way too much, more than you want. Some of you are new to it. So if you just need some help, we do know, like, most of you are here with your name in the Zoom list, but if your name is incorrect or you want to change something about it, then you can rename yourself by clicking on the participants button, which is at the bottom of the screen, and that'll open up this participants sidebar, find your name, hover over it, and then click the little rename button that comes up. And it's helpful for us if you say in your name, your first, last name, which advisory group you're part of, and your pronouns if you'd like to use them. And then another couple of Zoom reminders on the next slide. Don't mind going to that one. Is how to use chat. So for today's conversation, we really do want to try to do verbal conversation as much as possible, really keep the dialogue in the room. But we understand that you may need to use the chat for Zoom troubleshooting or for assistance, or just if your microphone isn't working. And the staff will also be putting some links into the chat so that you have access to project information. But please don't use chat for kind of substantive comments and deliberations and virtual side talk. We really want to keep the conversation verbal today. But if you do need a chat, then there's a chat button at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and then you can kind of click that you want to chat to everyone, and then type your message. Or if you're just doing troubleshooting, then send a chat message to Grant Simmons and he can help you. Okay, last couple of pieces of Zoom technology. When we get to the conversation portions of today's meeting, again, we ask you to raise your hand. That button is at the bottom of your screen. So you just click on that and you'll get in the queue to talk. And if you do need closed captioning today, you can turn that on for yourself. Everyone has the option to do that for themselves or not. There's a closed caption button at the bottom. You just click on that and pick your language and you'll get the captions there. Okay. On the next slide, I just want to walk through our public participation protocols. So at the end of today's meeting around 5:15, we'll have an opportunity for members of the public to make verbal comment, probably 1 to 2 minutes apiece, depending on how many people are interested in making comment. And we, of course, thank folks for taking the time today to join and, you know, be part of the conversation. It's really important for the meeting and for the CAG and the EJC. So when we do get to that part of the meeting, we'll kind of keep a queue going of who wants to make public comment. I would ask right now, if you are an attendee and think that you do want to make a public comment at the end of the meeting, can you press your raise hand button and just keep it on for a minute or two so that we can kind of collect those names? And we'll ask again when we get to public comment. It just gives us a good sense of, you know, who's wanting to make a comment. And all of the EJC and CAG meetings will have an opportunity for public comment throughout the process. You can also make your comments in writing to the project email through, you can send a comment to comp.plan@clark.wa.gov or through an online form, and we'll put those in the chat as well. Okay, so last piece before we kind of dive into the meeting is just our meeting discussion guidelines. We do hope for, you know, a collaborative space for people to ask questions, get information they need, and hear from each other. So we hope that throughout today's meeting and future meetings, you can, you know, honor the agenda, stay on topic, try to provide a balance of speaking time. You know, if you're a person that's shyer or doesn't tend to speak up, you know, get brave, get in the conversation. And if you know you've been talking for a while, give others a chance to chime in as well. We ask that you bring up concerns, ideas, comments as early as possible in the process. We're going to have many meetings together, but the earlier comments come in, the earlier they can be addressed and incorporated to create a good outcome. And as we're having conversation, we ask that you know, address issues and questions, focus on substance, no personal attacks, and listen to each other. You know, seek to sit in each other's shoes and understand each other's perspectives and kind of speak and listen with respect. Okay, that's all the talking I want to do for a while. I am going to turn it over to Oliver, if Oliver is on the line at this point.
Oliver is joined as an attendee. Oliver, can you accept the invitation, the pop-up on your window to become a panelist? Oh, okay.
Go ahead and take the slides down.
Hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks, Oliver. Yeah, do you want to say a welcome and then introduce our council liaison? Thanks, Oliver.
Yes, I will. Thank you, everyone. This is a great opportunity to meet each one of you. I know that Councillor Belcock is likely here. And if so, thank you, Councillor, for being a liaison to this group. I really don't have a lot to say, except to say that the climate bill, which the legislature passed, is one of the major bills that the legislature have added to the Growth Management Act, requiring counties such as Clark County that is fully planning under the Growth Management Act to now add a climate element to our comprehensive plan. It's a significant lift. Some of you who have been watching the legislature over the years knows that so many attempts have been made to have a climate bill. And last year, it became a success. So I welcome all of you. I look forward to, from time to time, coming in and listening to your work. It's going to be very technical and policy oriented and strategies, but I know you are all up to it. Thank you for volunteering to serve. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you're welcome.
that.
Yeah,
And,
thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think at this point I'll turn it over to Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
Great, thanks, Sylvia. So we're going to do some introductions and just recognize that we have a lot of folks in the room. So we can go to the next slide as we give the direction. So we are going to introduce ourselves. I'm going to ask that you keep your response short, right? We have a lot of folks in the room. We have a lot to move through. And my hope and expectation is that as we do this work together over the next year, that we'll have many more opportunities to get to know each other in more depth. So we're going to ask that you share your name, an organization or affiliation if that applies to you, your pronouns if you'd like to share, just to ensure that we respect how each of us are identified in our interactions with each other, and whether you're serving on the Environmental Justice Coalition, the Climate Advisory Group, or for some of you, both. So as I often do, I'll model, which hopefully will give you a sense of how long I'm hoping this will take with so many in the room. So again, my name is Ben Duncan. I'm with Kearns and West, a consultant team. I'll be the lead facilitator for the Environmental Justice Coalition. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm just really excited to be a part of this group and hopefully ensure that we have productive, constructive, and meaningful conversations as we do our work together. So what I'll do, I'm going to go around the room, hopefully not miss anyone. There's a lot of names I've written down, but I'll try to go in the order of my screen, and hopefully I provided you a template to work from. So I'm going to start with Nick.
I'm sorry, I wasn't realized I was going to be first. My name is Nick Massey. I work for Rachi Incorporated. And the one thing that inspired me to be part of this climate change work in Clark County is I was pretty involved from the business side on the City of Vancouver's climate action framework that they did. So I just want to make sure that the business has a voice in this.
Great, thank you for being here, Nick. Let's go to Nelson.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nelson Holmberg. I work for Northwest Natural. I am a native of Clark County in Vancouver, and a member of the CAG. And for me, it is keeping this community, the community I call home, for my lifetime, as special as we all know it to be currently.
Awesome, thank you, Nelson. Paris.
Hey y'all, my name's Paris Nelson. I'm here with Fourth Plane Forward. I use she, her pronouns. We are a part of the EJC. And one thing that inspires me to be here is that our organization at Fourth Plane Forward serves all of Clark County, but directly the Fourth Plane Corridor, which is the City of Vancouver's most diverse corridor region of our county. And we are very, very aware of how disproportionately environmental challenges and issues affect our community members of color, from heat waves and cold shocks and things like this. We see our community real, and we're here to hopefully be a part of good change for our community members.
Thank you, Paris. Dave.
That's Dave Rowett. I'm been a lived in Clark County since 2001. And I'd like to add my input to have Clark County grow properly. You know, I've been down in LA County and Orange County, and that was urban sprawl. And I hope that Clark doesn't go to urban sprawl. And I think this group is one group that would have a way to control some of that sprawl and make it so Clark County would be a good place to live in 50 years instead of sprawling out like LA County. So that's my thing. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, Dave. Sunrise?
I'm here. So I'm Sunrise O'Mahony. I use she, her pronouns. I'm part of CAG. And one thing, we're overdue for climate change work in this county. We're overdue by many, many years. And so I'm excited to be able to be part of something that is critical for our planet and to be part of that on a local level.
Thank you, Sunrise. Kathy?
And I echo what Paris says too. I was going to add that, but echo what she said.
Thank you. Kathy, jump in.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy New. I work at the American Red Cross, but I'm not working for the American Red Cross as part of this initiative. I'm just here as an individual. I work in innovation, and I go by she, her. One thing that inspires me to be a part of the CAG is that I have a young toddler. I want to make sure that she grows up in an environment that we protect, and she equally has a right to grow up in a way that we all have. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Kathy. Monica, jump in. We can see you getting there.
Oh, there we go. Also, I put it in the chat, my organization affiliation, but hello, everyone. I am Monica Zazweta. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a part of the CAG and the EJC. So the reason why I am here is because I have two kiddos, and my kiddo Aries, who's 9 years old, is terrified of their future here. And because of climate change. And also, I'm just going to add this. I have always thought since I was a little girl, not recently because I worked on myself, but I've always thought that I was just too stupid to understand the systems, and people that were in positions of power knew more than me. And I know now that I am worthy and I matter and my kids matter, and I need to be here for them and for future generations. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Don, jump in, please.
I'm Don Steinke. Hello, everybody. He, him. I'll be in the CAG, and I've been following climate change issues ever since George H.W. Bush said he'll fight climate change if you vote for me. And we haven't seen anything happen, and we need to get busy on this. I like what Sunrise said. Basically, time's wasting. And I work with the Sierra Club, with the Washington Conservation Action and the Alliance for Community Engagement here in Vancouver. And my own group is the Southwest Washington Climate Action of Southwest Washington. And I worked against the oil terminals for 5 years. We defeated about 20 of them. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Don. Welcome. Andrea.
Yeah, hi everyone. Andrea Smith. I'm not here on behalf of an organization. I'm here on behalf of myself as a homeowner in unincorporated Clark County. The one thing that there's a few things that inspire me to be involved in the CAG, but I would say being sure that we're balancing our climate solutions with housing affordability. I'm a millennial, and one thing that my generation unfortunately probably won't get to experience is having home ownership. So I really want to make that come to the forefront, and but at the same time solve some of our climate issues that we have. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Justin.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Wood. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Clark County Association of Realtors, and I am a part of the CAG. I've been a resident in Clark County since 2008, and what inspires me about doing this work is really coming up with creative solutions that work for all stakeholders in the community. And if we have enough of those creative solutions, I think we can really make a difference in climate change and how it impacts our county going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Danya. Oh, we can't hear you, Danya. You want us to, why don't we come back to you in a second? We'll see if we can sort it out. Laura, do you want to jump in first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Ellsworth. I'm with Council for the Homeless. I use she, her pronouns. I'm on the EJC, and I am here because I would like to represent and engage folks very disproportionately impacted by climate change and severe weather climate events that take place, which are people who are experiencing homelessness in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Let's go. Is it Noelle Laverne?
Hi, I'm Noelle Laverne, sorry.
Okay.
I am the Government Affairs Director for the Building Industry Association of Clark County. I am excited to be part of this group because I think so often we start making solutions in silos, and when we all come back together, we have to somehow rectify the solutions we've created in silos and try and meld them together. And I'm hoping that we can be really collaborative and come up with solutions from the start that make sense for a broader swath of our community.
Thank you. Min.
Yes, my name is Min Pham. I'm the president of the Vietnamese community of Clark County here. So we focus mostly on younger generation activities and development. So I am on the EJC group, and what make me join the group is to hopefully give the input that help to make us make a better decision, and representing the small Vietnamese community and probably another Asian community around the area.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Daniel, you want to try again?
Can you hear me?
Yay, we got you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danya Otto. She, her pronouns. I'm on the EJC. I am the ED for Sakura 39ers Youth Association. And what inspires me to be a part of this climate change work in Clark County is representation. I want to represent my Chuukese community. Thank you.
Thank you, Danya. Janet?
Yes, hi, I'm Janet Kanefsky, Vice President of Operations for the Greater Vancouver Chamber. And we are a chamber that represents businesses throughout Southwest Washington. What inspires me is making sure that frameworks are representative of various groups of stakeholders in addition to the business community and the impact that it plays on our community partners. So appreciate being a part of this group and hoping to also be able to provide some information back to the business community so that there's better education about what's happening here at this group level.
Good, thank you. Anne?
So my name is Ann Foster, she, her, and I'm with the CAG, I guess is how it's being called. My major interest is in the preservation of food producing farms and farmland in Clark County, both of which are disappearing rapidly. And climate change and the impact on climate change, I think, has just been underestimated on the impact on farms and farm producing capabilities here. And I think that needs attention. I'm currently the president of Friends of Clark County, which has its mission of working with the county in particular on management strategies for growth I serve on the Clark County Food System Council and have been organizing the Salmon Creek Farmers Market for about 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Let's go, Alana.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alana Tudela. I am with the Pacific Islander Health Board of Washington. I use she, her pronouns. I am both with EJC and CAG. And what inspires me to be a part of this is that to be a voice for my communities, for our Pacific Islander communities, especially because we do take up a lot of space here in Clark County, and to see how much more I can get involved with Clark County.
Great, thank you, Alana. So I'm going to take a little break in the middle of our introductions. I want to welcome Councilor Belkat into the space to give you some time for a few words and welcome and inspiration for the group, if you wouldn't mind. So please, Councilor, floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I was having some IT issues. It was blocking me out, saying that I was not allowed access. So it took me a while to get in there. So I apologize for my tardiness. I tried everything. So I'm Councilor Michelle Belkat, District 2, which is Salmon Creek, Hazeldale, Minnehaha, a little bit out to Five Corners and Philida. I've been on the council for about a little over a year at this point. I have actually quite a bit of environmental experience. I worked for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for a NEPA and a FERC biologist. So I know actually quite a bit about climate and the effects of climate. And also I've worked for different jurisdictions that's involved with refuges, hatcheries, and things of that nature. So glad to be here.
And then, Councilor, do you want to describe your role in relationship to the group?
I'm actually not necessarily sure of my role. I think I'm part of the collective group, actually. So, yeah,
Okay.
Brand new to me.
All right. Well, thank you and welcome. It sounds like you'll add some great expertise to our conversations. So appreciate you being here. Now people have been moving around on my screen, so my tactic of moving from person to person is going to be difficult. But let's go, Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica Brown. I am a homeowner in unincorporated Clark County, the Philida area. I go by she, her, and I'm part of the Climate Advisory Group. I'm a transplant in Clark County, originally from Florida. We moved here in 2018, and I wanted to be able to participate and help come up with a good plan so Clark County can be resilient as we move forward.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. Gabriela?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gabriela Mendoza Ewing. I am the Executive Director of Hispanic Disability Support of Southwest Washington, Pasitos Gigantes in Spanish. I am also a board member for the Developmental Disability Advisory Board for the county, and for the state, the Developmental Disability Advisory Board since 2019. So, and a few other groups. I'm here because I consider very important the voices of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to be considered and to be heard, and I'm part of the EJC. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabriela. Erin?
Hi, Erin Hamilton, she, her, I Urban Teen, and we're part of the EJC. So ditto Paris and Sunrise, and continuing I Urban Teens mission to serve students, underrepresented youth and families, and proud to be part of this group.
Thank you. Josh?
Hi, folks. Josh Jones, Partners in Careers. I'm part of the EJC, use he, him pronouns. And I'm here today to help kind of represent some of the work that I've done in our community through conservation education. It's been a real passion of mine in various organizations over the past 15 years, and also to represent some of the voices of the clients that we serve here at Partners in Careers, coming from sometimes underserved and underprivileged communities.
Great, thank you. Terry.
Good afternoon. My name's Terry Toland. He, him pronouns, member of the CAG. My employer is Clark Public Utilities. I am not representing my employer in this organization, only myself. I'm an engineer and have been working with air and water quality issues for over 30 years. Number one reason for being here, there's so many, but I'm an avid cyclist, and the air quality has really affected where and when I can ride with forest fire smoke and auto exhaust. So lots of reasons for being here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Great, thank you. Tavi?
Hi, I'm Tabby. I am a program coordinator with iUrban Teen. Something that inspires me with this work is that iUrban Teen works and serves underrepresented youth in the Clark County area. So I want to hopefully work with you guys to uplift and advocate for these kids. Mostly we serve middle school and high school students, and how we can continue to protect the most vulnerable groups in our community. So
Thank you, Kathy. Kathy?
Sorry, you don't mean me again, right?
Oh, sorry, I didn't cross you off. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Thilo, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
All right, good. Yeah, my name's Tilo Kluth. He, him. Reason that I wanted to be part of this group is not only I've been here in Clark County since 1999. We're transplants from California. You know, we made Clark County our forever home. My grandkids are here, and we're worried about, you know, the future with climate change and all the environmental issues. But I'm also here as a business person. I manage Mitchell Brothers Truck Lines, and we've been doing business in Clark County forever, last 30 years at least. And so the concerns that the business, especially transportation, the impacts of climate initiatives, and the financial impacts, you know, common sense reform, are all things that brought me to this group. I'm part of the advisory group. It's my first time, you know, getting involved at this level, so I'm kind of excited to be part of it.
Great, thank you. Karen?
Hi, my name is Karen Morrison. I'm the Senior Executive Director of Odyssey World International Education Services. I'm extremely excited and honored to be part of this collective group that is going to make some changes, not just changes, but viable solutions to take us into the future. And that is my hope. That is what I plan to join you all in this work to do. And I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ana?
Buenas tardes, everyone. My name is Ana Karen Betancourt Macias, she, her, ella, Outreach and Engagement Manager for Latino Leadership Northwest, EJC, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm here because our job is to give our youth the tools that they need to make the right decisions. And what better tools than to, you know, learn how to take care of the planet. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now folks are really moving around. I'm going to ask a favor so I don't have to call on people twice and embarrass myself in front of everybody. If you haven't gone yet, will you raise your hand? I think Patricia, we have you somewhere out there.
And can I also add, if you are a CAG or EJC member and you are an attendee still waiting to become a participant, then please raise your hand too. Or if you're by phone only, press *9 so that we can know that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm here. My name is Patricia Haggerty. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yep, we got,
I represent the kind of small and newly formed Food and Farm Justice Network in Clark County. We have a lot of small farms that are producing food, and we are highly impacted by all of the changes in the climate. In addition to the people who we service with food and who we represent are also highly affected, and we would like to give a voice to ourselves as farmers that are actually, doing the work of working through a number of issues, in addition to hoping to keep track of better land access and all sorts of small things which seem to kind of be held into this as a planning and climate change program. So we hope to kind of be an advocate for that and help the future of farming exist in Clark County.
great, thank you, Patricia. Rebecca?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca. I'm the Executive Director for the Free Clinic of Southwest Washington, she, her. We're on the EJC, and we're just here to represent the voices and experiences of our patients. Many of whom, as you've mentioned, are underrepresented and unfortunately affected by a variety of things, including climate change.
Great, thank you. Andrea, you had your hand raised. Did we already hear from you? Sharon, why don't you jump in? Sharon, are you out there with us? You're on
Sorry, I
mute.
forgot to unmute.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're on mute, I can't hear you.
Yes, I'm Sharon Ferguson, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a member of CAG. I'm unaffiliated, and my reason to get involved with this group is because I've long been interested in climate change and all the implications that come from climate change, and recognizing the dire need to find solutions to the climate crisis for continued life on planet Earth.
Right, thank you. All right, so again, if we've missed you, please raise your hand if you're a member of the EJC or the CAG. Y'all know when people like go off and on camera that everything switches around, and I'm like, wait a second.
And I'll say, the person who's logged in as Daisy/Brooklyn, we unmuted you for a moment if you wanted to say hello. We're not sure if you're a CAG or EJC member. And you might need to unmute on your end.
Okay, I think.
There we go. We can hear you.
Sorry, my name is Juan Monge. Sorry, maybe my daughter using the Zoom. I'm community organizer for Columbia River Keeper. I'm here because I'm interested how also the climate change affect the Columbia River Basin. So also I'm immigrant, so I represent the voice of the immigrant that the most affect for the climate change in one of the communities most affecting the climate change, especially in Clark County. Thank you. I have a technical issue also. I didn't let me be like a participant, so I hope that I can fix it.
Right, thank you. Angela.
Hi, my name is Angela. I work for Pacific Islander Community Association of Washington. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm part of the EJC. The one thing that did inspire me to be a part of this is exactly what Alana and Danya both touched base on, is representation and being able to help my community.
Right, thank you, Angela. Okay, I'm not seeing hands raised. I'm looking around trying to remember the 50 or so folks we've just called on and heard from. Did I miss anybody? No, it's not intentional if that's the case. Okay. Well, thank you all. I'm coming out of that introduction even more excited than I was coming into the room. So I'm just really inspired by hearing kind of what's motivating and bringing people into this space. So thank you for sharing. And I know as we do our work together, really looking forward to learning more about each of you and seeing the incredible work that you all collectively can do together. So if we can bring back up the slides, we're going to transition kind of building off those motivating and inspirational kind of what brought you here and really dive in and do some additional onboarding to the project itself. And we're going to start with some language. So if we can go to the next slide, we're going to start with some concepts that are referenced and utilized in the legislation and that we'll be using as we go through this work together. And we just wanted to make sure that folks have some familiarity with the terminology, but also recognize that the words and frames that we're introducing here are starting points for our understanding, and that all of us, as part of the work we'll be doing together, are going to give these definitions and give these concepts life, right? In the way that we do our work together by ensuring that we're building them into our processes, into our analysis, and really embedded into the policy recommendations that emerge from the work that we're collectively doing together. So I'm going to start with the term of environmental justice. I won't read out the definitions for you, but really it's foundationally built on fair treatment and the meaningful involvement of people that are impacted by environmental policy in the places where we live, work, play, and practice spirituality, and really just the right to kind of live in a healthy and safe environment. So again, environmental justice, we will be defining and giving life to as we do our work together. And connected to environmental justice is the frame and reality of vulnerable populations, and really recognizing and just holding and centering the idea that some groups are more at risk from the relationship of environmental harm and the connection of environmental risk and harm to health outcomes. And many of you named some of these pieces as part of what inspired and brought you into this room. If we can go to the next slide. And then these other two concepts that you will be hearing a lot of as we do our work together, thinking of resilience, right? How we prepare, respond, and recover from changes in climate and impacts to our natural systems and our built environments is an important concept that, again, you'll hear more as we do our work together. And then the frame and definition around health disparities that really can be described as differences in health outcomes comparing one population to another, but importantly, really recognizing and acknowledging these outcomes not just as preventable, but as linked to social, economic, and environmental benefits or burdens. And again, these are definitions, concepts that are referenced in the guidance from our work together. You'll hear more about as we do the collective work, and we'll be revisiting these terms and concepts and making sure that we're applying them to our work going forward. So I'm going to pass it to Jenna, who's going to further ground us in the work that we're going to do together.
Okay, so I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes or so going through a series of background context setting questions. And then there'll be some time after that for you all to ask questions. So if you think of things as I'm going through this background information, please jot yourself a note so that you can remember it in just a little bit. So the first question that I want to discuss is, what is the purpose of the county's climate project? Next slide. So to begin to answer this question, I want to read the introduction from the Washington State Department of Commerce Climate Element Guidance. And this is a document, I'll talk more about it later, but it's been developed to help local jurisdictions do the work that we are about to embark on. Washington's social, economic, and environmental sectors and systems face serious climate risks, which require a dynamic mix of measures to reduce emissions and build resilience. Burning fossil fuels and other human activities are increasing emissions of carbon dioxide, and other greenhouse gases that are trapping heat in the atmosphere and changing the climate. Even as Washington encourages residents to drive electric cars, install rooftop solar panels, and take other actions to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, the evergreen state faces unavoidable climate impacts. Our diverse landscape of snowy peaks, rolling fields, verdant forests, and rocky shores is already witnessing the effects of a warming world in the form of devastating wildfires, deadly heat events, rising seas, and other hazards. Many of the climate consequences we're seeing today will become more severe over the 21st century, absent mitigation and adaptation measures. Human activities are estimated to have caused 1.1 degrees Celsius of global warming above pre-industrial levels. And most emissions scenarios assessed project that global warming is likely to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius by the early 2030s. Here in Washington, that would make the average year warmer than the hottest year of the 20th century. And warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius would raise risks for the economy, environment, and human health and well-being, some of which are shown in the figure on this slide. For example, just 1 year of heat-related activity losses equates to more than $426.1 million in direct losses to industry sales, $178.3 million in lost gross state product, and 1,481 full-time equivalent jobs. Climate change also impacts residents within Washington differently. Overburdened and vulnerable communities, such as ones with higher rates of poverty and limited English proficiency, are more vulnerable to climate change due to historical trends, including the impact of redlining. These practices and other forms of discrimination concentrated people of color in communities that also experience disproportionately negative health impacts that can be exacerbated by climate change. There's a more than 5-year difference in life expectancy between communities ranked at highest risk versus those at lowest risk in the Washington Department of Health's Environmental Health Disparities Map. So I wanted to read that summary because I felt like it covered some of the intent behind this project, talking about that there's a changing climate, that there's some serious consequences projected here in Washington, and that impacts are going to be experienced inequitably across our community. Next slide. So another way to answer the question, what is the purpose of this project, is to talk about the fact that a piece of legislation, of climate change planning legislation, passed last year that the county is now required to implement. So on May 3rd of 2023, House Bill 1181, or HB 1181, was signed into law. And this new climate legislation amends the State's Growth Management Act, as well as a few other state laws. The bill is long, it's about 50 pages. So I'm going to highlight a few key pieces of this legislation today, but we will revisit it and review sections more closely as we work on the project. So a few things to highlight. This bill added a new climate change and resiliency goal to the Growth Management Act. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. It also requires Clark County to add a climate element to its comprehensive plan. And this element has to include 2 sub-elements, a greenhouse gas reduction sub-element and a resilience sub-element. Some other themes that show up in the legislation include environmental justice, which Ben had just introduced, and really the need to develop policies that not only can they not be causing harm to those most overburdened in our communities, but policies need to benefit those most vulnerable in our community to climate impacts. There are also requirements in this legislation around the use of best available science. And this is a term it's used in state planning legislation that describes scientific credibility. And the legislation also requires that the State Department of Commerce develop guidelines for local jurisdictions to use when implementing this law. So Clark County has to update its comprehensive plan with this new climate element by June 30th, 2025. I'll just make a side note. This due date may change because there's a new piece of legislation being considered right now. But the key takeaway here is that we have a legislatively mandated due date that we need to meet. So on this slide, there are links to 2 core documents for this project. The first is a link to the legislation, And then the second is a link to the state climate element guidance. So we'll be relying on these two documents quite a lot over the next year or so. They're both quite large. We will have printed copies available at your future meetings for any of you who may want one, and we'll also make sure you get these links so you can have electronic versions if you would like that. Please don't feel like you need to sit down and read these cover to cover. We want to just provide them so they're available as a resource as we do our work over the next year. Next slide. So I want to go just a little bit into more detail for the two sub-elements that I noted we need to develop. So for the greenhouse gas reduction sub-element, the legislation requires that the county identify actions it will take during the next 20 years to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled related to transportation and land use. And we have to do this without increasing greenhouse gas emissions elsewhere in the state. And these actions must prioritize reductions that benefit overburdened communities to maximize co-benefits of reduced air pollution and environmental justice. And then I also just wanted to note, when we say greenhouse gas or greenhouse gases, we're talking about gases like carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and certain synthetic chemicals that trap some of the Earth's outgoing energy and thus retain heat in the atmosphere. Next slide. For the resilience sub-element, we need to identify goals, policies, and programs that the county can pursue over the next 20 years to equitably improve county resiliency to the impacts of climate change. And these actions must identify, protect, and enhance natural areas to climate impacts, identify, protect, and enhance community resiliency, which includes social, economic, and built environment factors consistent with environmental justice, and address natural hazards created or aggravated by climate change. This sub-element requires prioritizing actions that benefit overburdened communities that will disproportionately suffer from the compounding environmental impacts and natural hazards due to climate change. And Ben showed a definition for climate resilience a few minutes ago. So just to reiterate, when we're talking about climate resilience, we're talking about the process of anticipating, preparing for, and adapting to changes in climate to help minimize the negative impacts on our natural systems, infrastructure, and communities. Next slide. So another way to answer the question, what is the purpose of this project, is to think about where this project does and does not apply. So this is a county project, and it's all about planning for the unincorporated parts of Clark County. So on this slide, that area is shown in blue. The cities in the county each have their own climate planning mandates, so they'll be doing some similar work in parallel to this project. But the county, we only have planning jurisdiction in the unincorporated areas. And as most of you probably know, the county has a really large rural area, and it also has a large unincorporated urban area. So neighborhoods like Hazeldale and Orchards and Salmon Creek fall in the county's jurisdiction because they are urban, but outside of the city of Vancouver. And I also wanted to mention the Cowlitz Indian tribe as a sovereign nation, their trust lands are not within the county's planning project area either. Next slide. Okay, so I tried to answer the question, what is the purpose of this project, in a few different ways. So just to recap, the project purpose in a nutshell is to add a climate element to the Clark County Comprehensive Growth Management Plan that's consistent with the new legislation by the state's mandated due date. For those of you in the EJC thinking about your purpose as it relates to the project purpose, we're asking you to help the county meet environmental justice requirements by conducting outreach with overburdened community groups vulnerable to climate impacts, and then advising us and the CAG on how to address the feedback that you hear in proposed policies. And for those of you who are on the CAG or Community Advisory Group, your purpose for this project is to recommend a suite of goals and policies for the climate element that are consistent with this new legislation. Next slide. Okay, so my next question that I'd like to cover to provide, again, some additional context and background is, what is a climate element? So to be able to answer this question, I need to provide a little bit more background information on the State's Growth Management Act and the county's comprehensive plan. So let's go to the next slide. So the Growth Management Act, or GMA for short, is one of the state's primary land use laws, and it has there are 15 goals of the Growth Management Act, which are listed out on this slide. And based on how the law is written, none of these goals is considered a higher priority than the others. This new climate legislation added a climate change and resiliency goal to the GMA. So didn't used to be there, has never been a goal prior to last year. And so under this new climate goal, comprehensive plans, development regulations, and regional plans now must support state greenhouse gas emission reduction goals and per capita VMT reduction, and foster resiliency to climate impacts and natural hazards, among other requirements. So this is the underlying law that's driving this work. Let's go to the next slide. So the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan, which is also often referred to as the Comprehensive Plan, or COMP Plan for short, is one of local government's primary tools for implementing the State's Growth Management Act. Comprehensive plans are long-range policy guides for how jurisdictions plan to manage population growth and development over a 20-year period. And the plan creates a vision for the next 20 years and has a framework that guides county decisions related to topics like those listed on this slide, such as land use, housing, and capital facilities. The county is required by state law to periodically review its comprehensive plan in its entirety, and if needed, to revise it. And these periodic reviews are to focus on addressing any changes in state law, so new legislation like this new climate law, changing land use designations if needed, and accommodating current or the updated population employment growth projections and housing projections. So right now, the county is going through one of these periodic reviews where we are updating our comprehensive plan. And so the next version of our comp plan is going to cover the timeline of 2025 to 2045. So if you hear us say we're planning actions for the next 20 years, that's the time frame we're talking about, 2025 to 2045. So this slide, the items listed out here are what are called elements of the comprehensive plan. And so the Growth Management Act has some mandatory elements. So for instance, land use, housing, capital facilities, utilities, for counties, rural, transportation, economic development, and parks and recreation. These are all mandatory elements of comprehensive plans. And now with and then there's some optional elements that are in the plan as well. So for instance, the county's plan has a schools element and a historic element in it too. So with the passage of this new legislation, Clark County is now required to have a climate change and resilience element in its plan. So that's a new mandatory element. And the county's comprehensive plan is set up so that each comp plan element has its own chapter in the document, which is pictured here. So to start to answer the question, what is a climate element? We can think about it in a very simple way. A climate element is a chapter in the comprehensive plan. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So if a climate element is a chapter in the county's comprehensive plan, what's in it? So the basic structure is that there's going to be, we'll have to explain the purpose of the climate element and provide some general background information in it. And then there will be a set of countywide planning policies. And countywide planning policies are agreed upon policies between all of the city and county decision makers in Clark County to create consistency between each jurisdiction's plans. So planning staff in each city in the county will coordinate on these policies with all of our local decision makers over the coming months to create this consistency framework. And then following those countywide planning policies will be a list of 20-year county planning policies. So these are goals and actions the county plans to take over the next 20 years that just apply to that unincorporated county project area. So this is where we are really requesting your help. You'll be able to review the whole element and provide feedback on it, but most of our time and focus is going to be on developing these 20-year county planning policies. Next slide. So this slide, this is just for example only, in case some of you like a more concrete example of what I mean. So we'll end up with some goals, like the example on this slide that I pulled out of the state's climate element guidance. And so in this case, the example is there's a goal to reduce vehicle miles traveled to help achieve greenhouse gas reduction goals. And then under that goal, we might have a list of policies, and we've got 2 examples here on the slide. So this is really where the substance of the climate element comes in, are these goals and supporting policies. Next slide. Okay, so I've been talking for a while. This is the last question I'm going to try to cover as this background piece. So I just want to touch on what is the final outcome of each of the advisory groups. Next slide. So when we think about the end result of advisory group work for this project, for those of you in the Environmental Justice Coalition who will be doing public engagement and equity work, you'll be collecting feedback from overburdened communities and populations vulnerable to climate impacts, and then advising the county and the CAG on how to address the feedback that you're hearing. Also, by the end of this project, you will have helped guided development of an equity lens that can be used to evaluate any policies that are drafted. There's a lot to unpack in those 2 statements, which we will be doing over the next few months. So I'm not quite doing that justice right now, but just introducing that this is the final outcome we are aiming for with our EJC group. And a little bit towards the end of the agenda, we will have some time with the EJC to talk a little bit more about what we mean by things like public engagement and collecting feedback, and some examples of what that might look like. For those of you in the community advisory group, your final deliverable is a recommendation that staff can then bring to the Planning Commission and to the County Council. And this recommendation is going to be a list of goals and policies for the county to implement for the next 20 years. And we are asking that whatever it is that you all recommend, it has to be consistent with this new legislation. So we'll be working with you on coming up with an approach on how we're gonna do that. All right, next slide. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking because that was a lot. So I think we are ready for questions.
That was a lot. Thank you, Jenna. That's some great grounding for folks as you enter the process. So as a reminder, you can see the icon raising hand. So just want to open it up for any questions, reflections. Don, jump in, please. You're on mute though, Don.
Thank you. I didn't see anything there about a health element in the growth management plan. We had one in 2011. But we don't now, and we have a number of people from the health department as part of this team. And then secondly, do we have any interim goals? I think interim goals are real important to be thinking of 2030 rather than 2045. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Yeah, so is that you, Jenna? So there's kind of 2 questions embedded in from Don. One is the absence of a health element, and maybe how we think about weaving in health and connecting health disparities into the work. And then the other piece, just the 20-year management plan. Are there interim goals within those?
Yeah. So I think confirming what you said, Don, there is not currently a health element in the county's comprehensive plan. So that doesn't exist. And I think, as Ben mentioned, health disparities comes up quite a bit in this legislation. So it's something we will need to figure out how to address. So I'm not sure I know the how, but we know that we do need to address that. And it is one of the reasons why we are really glad some public health staff are helping out with this project as well. So that's for the health element piece. And then in terms of interim goals, the state, the current version of the guidance document that we are to follow for this work it tells us that we should come up with interim goals. And so part of this legislation, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds right now, but we're going to have to report and monitor progress. And so there's a suggestion that we come up with 5-year incremental interim goals that'll line up with the monitoring and reporting that we'll need to do. So we'll get there.
Yeah, thank you, Don, for those questions. I don't know if any of our public health folks want to add any additional content around the health, embedding kind of health considerations. Growing up in public health, we'd say every chapter is actually a public health chapter, but Amy, did you want to add anything?
I think the key point is that we are here at the table. We're working closely with community planning on this key element that's new to the county. And so public health is at the table. And so we'll be working really closely and are playing a key role with the Environmental Justice Coalition. So that'll be all part of this process for sure.
Good, thank you, Amy. Other questions for clarity or reflection or content? Yeah, Monica, jump in, please.
Awesome. Yes, I wanted to read something. So it's reducing greenhouse gases involves various strategies such as transitioning to renewable energy sources like solar and wind power, improving energy efficiency in industries, transportation and buildings, preserving and restoring forest, implementing carbon pricing mechanisms, promoting sustainable agriculture practices, and encouraging the adoption of cleaner technologies. Additionally, investing in research and development for innovative solutions and raising awareness about the importance of reducing greenhouse gas emissions are crucial steps. And some resilience options for climate change include investing in infrastructure, building resilient infrastructure that can withstand extreme weather events such as floods, hurricanes, and heat waves. 2, ecosystem restoration, restoring and protecting natural ecosystems like mangroves, wetlands, and forests, which provide valuable services such as flood protection, carbon sequestration, and habitat preservation. 3, water management, implementing sustainable water management practices to ensure reliable access to clean water, especially in regions vulnerable to droughts and water scarcity. 4, diversifying agriculture, promoting diversified and resilient agriculture practices, including crop rotation, agroforestry, and the use of drought-resistant crops to enhance food security in the face of changing climate conditions. 5, community engagement and education, empowering communities with knowledge and resources to adapt to climate change impacts, including early warning systems, disaster preparedness, and sustainable livelihood options. 6, urban planning, incorporate climate resilience into urban planning and design, including green infrastructure, sustainable transportation, and building codes that consider future climate risks. 7, insurance and financial mechanisms, developing insurance schemes and financial instruments to help communities and businesses recover from climate-related losses and incentives, investments in resilience measures. And 8, research and innovation, supporting research and innovation in climate resilience technologies such as weather forecasting, resilient crops, and innovative infrastructure designs. And I got these from ChatGPT because I was like, hey, technology, we also need your help too. But then it was just like, hey, I wanted just to share that with you all too, because I thought it was very interesting and would support our work. So thank you.
Thanks. I was wondering how many numbers you were going to get to, Monica, but I appreciate that. And as we, and you're giving us a preview of some of the opportunities and challenges that both groups will be working through. So thank you for that. Let's go. Anne, jump in. Appreciate you.
2 questions. One is the slides that Jenna, you just produced and shown. Are those going to be available on the website or follow up or?
Yes, absolutely. We were working on them just until a few minutes before the meeting started, but
Okay.
yes, we'll
Okay,
make sure
just
you
want to,
get
just want to
get
make sure
those.
that there was a way to access them. The second
Yep.
question is, how does the process work in terms of the cities in their climate change plans? How do we make sure that they mesh with the counties going forward? How does that work?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because there does need to be consistency between the cities and the counties' plans. So I mentioned that there'll need to be some county-wide planning policies developed, which is it's going to have to be discussed and decided between all the city and the county decision makers. So those are what we use to assess consistency, essentially. So those are the policies that we'll be checking against for anything that we do as a group for the county. Are we consistent with the countywide planning policies? And then similarly, the cities, as they develop their climate elements, will need to similarly check against that. So those policies really are there for that consistency piece. And just if I think about other elements in the comprehensive plan that already exist that have those, they tend to be fairly high level, but it can create a nice framework that at least everybody is being consistent with. Yeah.
And I just want to also add, so Clark County operates under the Growth Management Act. So Washington State has the Growth Management Act, and that requires the cities and counties to have consistent plans. So that's our basis for ensuring our policies are consistent across the region. So we work towards having a seamless transition between communities.
Okay.
Thanks, Gary. And then Jenna or Gary, did you want to speak to the advisory team? Because that is also, I imagine, one of the mechanisms that's built to help support some level of alignment. Or maybe
Yeah, it's a little bit. So we are teaming with the cities as well on some work. Like we have an interlocal agreement set up with the smaller cities. So we have the same set of consultants who are doing some background work for all of us. But it gets really messy. This is what takes up a lot of my time, the administration of all of this. So we do have a third advisory group, which we're calling our partner agency team, which includes the cities as well as other regional agencies and the utilities and service providers and stuff. So we are going to be providing feedback to each other as these climate elements are developed for each jurisdiction. So again, I'll stop there. But
just knowing there's some infrastructure to relate to Aaron's question, right? So that that it doesn't get lost in the broader body of work. Anna, can you jump in?
Yes, just a quick question. When it comes to, gathering information from community, we know that some of our community members do not speak English. Will we be able to tap into some type of resources when it comes to translation, anything, or translators or anything like that?
Yeah, and we'll be able to get into the specifics too, with each of your organizations who's helping us with this work to, I think, gauge sort of what you all think is needed. So the county does have a budget to do some translation and interpretation work throughout this project. And then I think are also hoping some of the EJC members, we know some of you all have some in-house expertise. So I think there's a range of resources available. So we'll need to talk through, what folks think they need, and then figure out who will provide what. But yeah, our hope is to remove as many barriers as we can to, for folks who want to participate so they can.
Thank you.
Right. Any last questions? Otherwise, we'll take a short break before we keep going, but don't want to cut it off if there's folks that have any questions for today. Kathy?
I was just wondering, it's probably too early on, but what are our set of constraints, right? Because we could nominate a bunch of ideas, but there are real world implications, like they cost a lot of money to implement. So how do we know what bounds we have to operate in?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I'm trying to think about, based on where we are today, we're gonna have to come up with a framework essentially, and criteria. Like that'll be some of what we discuss as we do our work on setting criteria. So if something like cost is really important to this group, or that could be a criteria we use to help evaluate possible policy ideas. There are some criteria we have to consider. So like environmental justice, we have to consider that for all these policies. I mean, it is written into this law. We should be doing it anyway, but we have to do that. So there's some criteria that will identify because the legislation says we have to do it. And then we have a chance to also identify any additional criteria to use to help with figuring out what policies actually make sense. So a lot of discussion to come, I think, to figure that out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks, Jenna. Other questions? But again, this will not be your last chance to ask any questions. Don, jump back in, please.
Yes, I just wanted to help answer that question. There is a pile of money coming from the federal government, $1 trillion coming from the federal government to help with this, but we need people to be watching it to try to apply for it. And then we have in the state of Washington, we have a Climate Commitment Act, which is funding part of this work. But I think there's a lot of other funding coming for different things, like for electric vehicle charging station, for solar panels and whatnot. So there's a lot of money coming, but it's going to be left on the table if we aren't applying for it. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks for naming, and a lot of eligible entities, I imagine, in the room as well, Don. So thank you for that. Aaron?
Hi. The communities we serve are both in the unincorporated and in the incorporated areas. You were pretty targeted with the map of the unincorporated areas and what restrictions are there in that intersection of these communities that we serve.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to strategize with each organization on approach to collecting feedback. I think we know that we could hold any kind of public engagement event and people may be there who aren't in the unincorporated area, and that's okay. I think the main thing is any policy work, any proposed policies that come out of this work are only going to impact that unincorporated area. So it's likely we'll get feedback from folks maybe who don't live in the unincorporated area. That's okay. That's still useful feedback. But the policy work that comes out of here won't directly impact, let's say, like people in the city of Vancouver, for instance, because the city will have their own policies. So I think we could probably dive into that a little bit more when it comes to thinking about what makes sense based on the, how you interact with the teams that you're working with, for instance, and how to navigate that.
Yeah, and we can revisit that as you all are thinking about and designing the engagement strategies for the EJ Coalition. So I appreciate you naming that, Aaron. Well, why don't we take a break? I know my human needs are calling, so if we could take maybe 5 minutes, we'll come back at 5:01, I guess, on my clock. Are folks good with 5? Okay, so we'll take 5 minutes and we'll talk a bit about process as we move to the next section. All right, we'll see you in 5 minutes. Paris, did you have a question or comment? Sorry, hand raised. Oh, getting back in. Okay.
Perfect. All right, I think it's 5:01, so let's reconvene from our break.
Hey.
We're just staying on top of these minutes here.
Hey, Ben.
Oh,
Thank
go ahead.
you. Oh, sorry. I'd had my hand raised up, but it's because I needed to be invited to become a panelist again. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. We got you.
Okay, great. So now we're gonna spend some time going over the Community Advisory Group and the Environmental Justice Coalition and kind of what these groups are gonna do, what the process looks like. This is really tip of the iceberg. You did get a plan in advance of this meeting that really outlines the role and the responsibilities of the committees, how they integrate into the process overall, kind of some meeting guidelines, protocols, what to do, if you need an alternate or if you need to withdraw. There's a lot of really important information in there. So we hope that you get a chance to read it all. And today we're just going to kind of go over some of the key pieces that are important for both of the committees to understand, and we'll have time to go over more of it in detail at your future meetings. So I'll spend a little bit of time going over the roles of the two committees, which Jenna really outlined pretty well in her presentation before too. But just a reminder, if you go to the next slide, we have the Environmental Justice Coalition, and really this coalition is helping to represent the interests of vulnerable populations and bringing their voices into the process. And the critical pieces of work that the EJC is working on is really developing and bringing engagement into the community. So developing public engagement plans, doing public engagement activities, and then bringing that input back into the process. The other key piece is kind of developing this equity lens so that the policies and goals that are coming from the CAG are kind of going through this lens to make sure that they are equitable. And then on the next slide, we have the general role of the Community Advisory Group. So the Community Advisory Group represents a broad range of perspectives and experiences. We heard today in the introduction so many great backgrounds coming from different places. So we're really excited that we have such a broad range of interests in that group. And the key role of the CAG is to develop those goal and policy recommendations. So what actions is the county planning to take for the next 20 years, for that 20-year planning horizon to meet the state climate legislation? And the CAG will also be considering public feedback at key decision points. So, taking what the EJC is going out and collecting in terms of input, considering that as they make their recommendations. And then, of course, considering equity through the equity lens that's developed by the EJC. And the next slide says a little bit about how the two groups will work together. So, just a little bit that the EJC will be collecting feedback from their constituents, sharing that back with the CAG. And the CAG, as they develop their policy drafts and recommendations, will kind of be bringing that to the EJC to make sure that equity is effectively incorporated. And so there will be a really nice back and forth between the CAG and EJC on those pieces. Okay, and if we go to the next slide, this is just a little bit on, expectations for attendance and participation in the meetings. It's really critical that folks try to attend all of the meetings. If you're part of the CAG or the EJC, these are going to be pretty packed meetings, especially as we dive into really developing the climate element pieces for the CAG, and for the EJC working through your community engagement plans. So we do expect that you try to come to all meetings and participate in kind of a collaborative spirit, knowing that we're trying to reach good outcomes together. And if you do miss a meeting, then really we're taking responsibility to review the meeting recording. All these meetings will be recorded, and materials that are coming out before and after the meetings. And some of you are here representing, other groups, other constituents. So we do expect that you are talking to the folks you are either representing or needing to talk to in between meetings so that you can get their input and bring it into the process as well. And in terms of alternates, the EJC and CAG each have a little bit of a different protocol here. For the Environmental Justice Coalition, members can have an alternate to attend, so you can, switch off and keep each other informed, of course, make sure that both of you are up to speed on what's going on. For the Community Advisory Group, we do not have alternates at this time. So expectation is you'd be coming to the meetings, and then if you miss a meeting, catching up in between time. Okay, just another couple of slides here on process. So this is a flow chart that shows what the decision-making process looks like for this process. So there's a lot of different pieces, and this may be a little overwhelming at first, but will probably start to make sense as we get into the process. So really, we're going to have the community advisory group getting a lot of information from the project team, background information, technical information, public input, what the EJC is hearing from their communities. The CAG will be considering all of that as it forms recommendations for goals and policies that would meet the climate legislation. And then the CAG will be making their initial recommendations and then work with the EJC, kind of that back and forth to make sure that equity considerations are incorporated into that recommendation. So, the EJC will review what the CAG's coming up with. The CAG will incorporate the EJC kind of equity lens into the work. And then once that recommendation is feeling solid, then county staff would bring the recommendation on goals and policies to the Planning Commission, which would then go forward as a recommendation to the County Council. And the County Council is the final decision maker for all of these pieces, of course. And throughout this whole process, there will be ongoing public participation, both county-led public participation as well as participation that's led by EJC members. And then, as Jenna described before, there's a partner agency team made up of cities, counties, kind of internal technical staff that can provide some of that technical input and maybe sideboards if needed to make sure that the recommendations are in line with what can happen at the city county level. So that's the decision-making process. And then one more slide here before I turn it over to Jenna. There's a lot of work ahead, and so we've tried to kind of chunk it out into different phases that are hopefully understandable and will build upon each other to get to a final outcome. So for the next few months, we're going to be in what we're calling here phase 1, so exploring climate impacts. And this will be an opportunity for you all to get a better understanding of what is happening in the county, what are the climate risks, what's happening on the ground, and then for you to bring in what you value as we explore climate impacts. And then the phase 2 and phase 3 are really the bulk of the work. So developing the list of goals and policies for the resiliency element of the climate element, as well as the greenhouse gas reduction sub-element of the climate element. So the CAG will be working on those at your meetings, and the Environmental Justice Coalition will be getting input from the community that will then be fed to the CAG to help with development of these goals and policies. And then towards the end of the process, the end of this year into 2025, we'll kind of roll that all up for a final recommendation that would go to the Planning Commission and then through to County Council for a final decision. So really high level timeline, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of a picture of the work ahead. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to go over some other group logistics and reminders, and then we'll have a little bit of time for questions before we open it up to public comment.
Yeah, so this is like my miscellaneous list of things I needed to tell you all. So so bear with me. So the first item is about open government training. So for all of our commissions and county boards, members of those groups are required to take an open government training. And since you all are part of a county project advisory group, much of these open government laws in the state also apply to what you're going to be involved with us for this project. So we will follow up with you all after today's meeting to share this link with you. And we ask that you take this training. And when you click on that link, it'll take you to a web page, and then there's 3 links you need to click on and look at the information on each of them. And then once you do that, you then need to submit the form on the page that says, I completed these trainings. And then we'll be notified that you've done that. So we ask that you do this training in the next 90 days. So everyone should be done with this before the end of May. So that's what that is. I would like to highlight a few things though that are going to be covered in this training. The first is about the Open Public Meetings Act. And so for this state law, we need to make sure that all group discussions are being held in public and not behind closed doors as part of this project. So that means that a quorum of you, so at least half of the CAG or half of the EJC, that many people can't discuss this project in between meetings with each other, because it would be, you'd be having a meeting that wasn't publicly noticed, essentially. So that includes meeting with people in person, that includes emailing each other, that includes phone calls to each other, because even if it's not everybody talking at once, if you have a series of communications, it's considered a serial meeting under this law. So a few recommendations from us at the county. One is never reply all to a project email. Please just reply to the project team who sent it to you. So if you have a question or you have something you'd like to make sure gets discussed at a future meeting, please let those of us on the project team know, and then we can incorporate it into a future meeting agenda. Okay, so that's a little bit about the Open Public Meetings Act. But again, when you take this training, it'll go over some more information related to that. And then the Public Records Act, which is another state law. Basically, any communication that you have related to this project, it's likely considered a public record if it's some sort of written form of, well, actually, I take that back. Most forms of communication that you do regarding this project is probably considered a public record. So that includes anything written. If you leave a voicemail for someone about this project, it's a public record. If you make social media posts about this project, it could be possibly a public record. And the main thing to know here is that the county gets a lot of public records requests. And there could be a situation where we need to ask you to help search all of your records that might pertain to that records request. So a few tips on how to navigate this. One is if you ever send an email related to the project, if you can please make sure staff is copied on it. That way, those of us at the county, we get a copy of that communication and it's searchable by us at the county. And then another thing to think about is on some of the other commissions that advisory groups that I've worked on, sometimes people don't really want their personal email or anything like that to be subject to a public records request. So sometimes people like to create a separate email so that all communication for their work with the county is going there and is completely separate. So if you like that idea and want to set up a separate email that we would use moving forward with this project, you're welcome to do that, just so it's a very clean distinction from the rest of your communications in the rest of your life. So if you want to do that, just let us know and we'll update our roster so we know how you want us to contact you. Okay, so that's what I want to say about Public Records Act. Again, there's more detail in this training. The other items I wanted to mention, for those of you who are in the community advisory group, the county is able to offer a $50 stipend per meeting if you meet the eligibility criteria that's required by our state funder. So we have a form that we'll send out after the meeting. And if you are interested in receiving that stipend, you can fill out the form and then return it to me, and then we'll get you set up in our system. for those stipends. For those of you who are part of the Environmental Justice Coalition, we also have invoice forms or templates ready for you. So you can now start submitting those to us for any of your time spent on the project so far. So again, we will get you a link to where we have those available so that you can start submitting those and getting paid. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that we have added all of you to the Community Planning Department's climate change email distribution list. So you'll receive news releases and other public communications that get sent out by the planning department that relate to this project. So you may have already seen some of those, but you'll continue to see those moving forward because we added you to that list. Okay, that's all I wanted to cover for this slide.
Great, thank you, Jenna. All right, so we'll open it up for questions from EJC and CAG members. If you have any questions about the process that we went over or the stipends or anything else that Jenna went over, just go ahead and raise your hand with the raise hand icon or press *9 if you're on the phone. And we can take the slides down for a minute here. All right, Paris.
Hello, y'all. Quick question, and it's regarding to the sort of the data collection about time spent in communications. But our organization recently was awarded a separate fund to do environmental justice work, and there are elements within that grant that are very similar, like community engagement, right? That would overlap certainly with, I believe, probably the work inevitably of this group. How could we as an organization maybe help be a good partner to you all in teasing apart efforts so that if you need to make a request, you can, and we're not, because there's other teammates involved in that other piece of work, and I want to make sure that we do our due diligence for you all.
Yeah, that's a good question, Paris. And we'll probably need to meet. Lauren, Amy, and I can meet with you and probably get into the details specifically. But I think we, yeah, we'll figure it out. I think we need to make sure, like a big thing with state funders, like who are funding that's like, right, there's no double dipping. Like make sure that you don't have grants paying for the same work. So we can talk more and figure out an approach to have them, right? Maybe they could inform each other, but make sure there's also really clean separation where needed.
Right. Okay, that sounds good. And our other funder is the State Department of Health, just to cue you in.
Okay.
Thank you, Paris. The others, any other questions about the process? Okay, great. Well, next we're going to go into public comment and see if there's anyone who wants to make a public comment. If you don't mind putting this slide back up. So we're going to ask folks who are in the attendee list and here as members of the public, if you'd like to make a comment, go ahead and press the raise hand button. Mary, we had noted before that you had wanted to make a comment, so we'll call on you first if you still do want to make a comment, and others, if you're interested, please go ahead and raise your hand at this point. And when you make your comment, please just say your name so we all know who you are. We'll give folks about 2 minutes apiece here and just focus on the substance of what we're talking about here, the climate element, and stay respectful and keeping comments to the topics on the agenda. So Mary, if you still want to make a comment, do you want to go ahead and say that now? You may need to press the unmute button.
Hi, yes, I was just going to say that I was filling in for Kelly Dundon from Northwest Natural as her seat on the CAGs. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining today, Mary. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands up from members of the public, but I'll wait another few seconds here. Okay, Well, if you think of anything else you want to say to the team, please go ahead and send in any written input to comp.plan@clark.wa.gov. Comments are accepted at any time throughout this process. All right, so with that, we can get into our wrap up and next steps. And what we're going to do here is go through some of our next steps and let community advisory group members go after this. And then Environmental Justice Coalition members stay on for another half hour to talk about the community engagement plans. So if we go to the next slide, we have some homework for folks, and a lot of this was already covered at today's meeting, but like Jenna said, we're looking for all community members to do the Open Public Meetings Act training within the next 90 days, so try to get that done. And then CAG members, please submit those stipend forms if you're interested in the $50 per meeting stipend with meeting the eligibility criteria. And for CAG members, we are also going to send you a link to a survey after this meeting. One of the first pieces of work that you're going to help develop is a vision statement for the climate element process. And so you'll get a survey with some questions just about your experience and kind of how climate impacts your day-to-day experience, what you value in your community, what's important to protect in the face of climate change. So a few questions like that. And we would just ask you to think those through and fill that in within about a week so that we can use that as the basis for developing a vision statement at our next community advisory group meeting. So be on the lookout for that survey. And then other homework for the Environmental Justice Coalition is to submit your January invoice forms. And of course, to start working on your public engagement work plans, which you'll be doing in the next half hour here as well. All right. And then on the next slide, just a couple of things about upcoming meetings. We do not yet have a community advisory group meeting date set, but we do have one for the Environmental Justice Coalition, and that's coming up really soon on Monday, March 4th. So I look forward to that one. So you'll be working with Ben Duncan to facilitate that meeting. If you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to Jenna or to anyone here on the facilitation team as well. Jenna, I'll turn it over to you with kind of anything to close us out before we get into the Environmental Justice Coalition work plans.
I don't have much to add besides thank you all for being here. We know this is a really big group and we won't have the opportunity to meet all together that often. So thank you for being here today. And we're really excited to get started. And yeah, looking forward to the next bit with the Environmental Justice Coalition because we know they are getting ready to start helping us with our engagement soon. So yeah, but I don't have anything else specific.
So I think I think a couple things have come up. So did we want to do a poll? So for CAG members, do we want to do that live poll now, or do we want to do that as a follow-up?
Let's do it now.
Okay, so for CAG members, so EJC members, we're way ahead of them. So we've already scheduled our meeting, you know how we do. But for CAG members to be able to help us get the meeting scheduled, if you all could follow a poll. And then there's just been, for CAG members and EJC members, we're going to stay on the same Zoom link. CAG members, you won't necessarily be part of that conversation, but you're welcome to stay and observe if you haven't had enough meeting time for today. So hopefully you see a poll up there. I shouldn't talk about this poll, Nicole or Sylvia, because I'll give people the wrong directions of how to do this.
It says host and panelists can't vote, so us on the panel can't vote on this.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't quite hear that. Could you say that again, Nikki? Nick, did you say folks can't
So
vote?
this host and panelists cannot vote. So if you want to poll from us, it's going to be a little difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not having any interaction with it.
While we troubleshoot, if I might just chime in, we are polling you all again, those of you who are part of the CAG, because we have yet to find a time that works for all of you. So we are asking you to select. And actually, when that comes back up, can that be set up so that people can check multiple options? I think it also showed, our interest is that you select any time that works for you that you could make work most of the time. So pretty much every time I've offered so far, it doesn't work for at least a few of you. So we're asking you to flex your schedules as much as possible to try to find a time that works. We know it's hard with a large group like this. So hopefully that will come up back shortly.
So Nicole, go ahead and try to launch it again, but it's sounding like the poll is not working for panelists.
I think, Grant, would you mind? I think there was just a setting we had to enable it for.
I'm looking.
There's also a question while we're waiting about whether the March 4th CAG meeting, EJC meeting will be via Zoom. Do you want to go over that, Jenna or Ben?
I think that's the plan, although Jenna, are we going to offer a hybrid option for March 4th?
Yeah, so it seems like for that group, for the most part, there's a preference for joining virtually. But for those meetings, we will have a conference room set up at the county building. So if you really want to come in person, you're welcome to. So it will be set up as hybrid, but our understanding is most folks are interested in joining virtually.
Monica, did you want to jump in as folks are? Well, I'm seeing that at least some responses are coming in, so that's a good sign. Monica, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I did. I think it was Jenna that said to turn in invoices for January. And I was just wondering what we can put in for that. Was that just meeting with you all, that one meeting that we had? Or yeah, I just wanted more clarification on what billable hours we can do and how many we can get in a month too also.
Yeah, generally, you all can, anytime starting January 1 that you met with us or the Kearns and West folks, or any time spent reviewing materials to prep for a meeting like this, all of that can be included. And then if you have more questions, we can also talk more offline.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Sunrise, you had come off mute. Did you want to jump in? And then Don, I see your hand.
Actually, Kathy made the comment on here. I was just going to say that the poll is working, but we can only do one choice.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you want us to do.
Yeah, it looks like we weren't able to make it multiple choice, Jenna. So maybe our effort to do this live was thwarted by technology.
So thank you all again for your patience with us trying to schedule. We will send you these times, but we'll follow up, send it by email and ask for you all to reply. And I guess my one ask again is just, please tell us every possible time you can make work, because we are having a hard time just finding something for that group. So
that was my question as well. That's all. That was my question.
Okay, well, so we will try again. So look for that communication from us by email.
As Sylvia would say, you might have to miss your bridge night, but we'll ask people to be as flexible as possible. Obviously, I'm reflecting back on what motivated and inspired y'all to be in this space. So hopefully that will inspire you to think about your calendar in a way that allows you to be flexible. Guys, so the poll will give us some glimpse into what might be possible, but we'll do some follow-up then.
Yeah, perfect. So look for some follow-up emails with information and the vision statement homework for community advisory group members. And please do fill out the poll when you get it by email, because we do need to find that time. All right. Well, I think we'll move into the EJC community engagement plans now. So thank you everyone for participating. CAG members, again, you're welcome to stay and listen in if you'd like to. And it's really been a pleasure to chat with you all this evening.
Awesome. Thank you, Sylvia. So say goodbye to the CAG members that are going to leave. Thank you. And then Amy, we'll have you kick it off, right? We're going to move into the EJC work plan and then do some closing activity that hopefully bring us with some shared vision and energy as we leave at 6 p.m. tonight.
Yes, thank you, Ben, and everybody for continuing to stay present. We're in the home stretch with hopefully the last 30 minutes. That's our plan here. So we'll just jump right in with work plan discussion and hopefully giving you a lot more detail that you'll be able to use as EJC members moving forward in this next phase, next most important phase of developing our work plan. Next slide, Nicole. So before we just dive right in, I know we've all gone around and done introductions, but I don't think that we've in one comprehensive place listed all of the organizations who are a part of the EJC. So wanted to just take a moment to put this up on the screen. Thank you all for applying to participate and taking the time to do that, and then working with the county moving forward for this important project. So just wanted to thank you, and we are going to be working on possibly getting a roster out to all of you. If you do not want your contact information shared with the rest of the EJC members, if you could send me an email by March 1st, that would be great. Otherwise, we'll try to put some kind of a roster together just so that we all know who's who and how to reach each other. So that would be great. Next slide. And so a quick overview of what we're going to try to cover in this next 10 minutes or so, and then some Q&A at the end, and then a wrap up discussion. But first, we'll review the goal of the EJC public engagement and equity work. Then we'll also review the climate project's timeline, specifically for public engagement activities. And then we will overview the work plan development, what we're looking for as far as templates, things to assist you as you complete your public engagement work and your work plans, the requirements that we're going to need you to kind of stick to, and then the support that we're hoping to provide here as county staff. We'll also include some next steps and homework, and then, like I mentioned, some questions, time for questions, and then a follow-up discussion before we wrap up and let you go for your evening. Next slide. So the goal of the EJC public engagement and equity work, if you'll move to the next slide, Nicole, this just kind of highlights on things that Jenna and Sylvia already touched on regarding the responsibility and purpose of the EJC, which is really to ensure that the voices from overburdened communities and populations vulnerable to climate impacts are represented through this process. So that's what we'll continue to do through this work. Next slide. And so we're hoping to kind of start to paint a picture of what the time frame and timing might look like for these public engagement activities. Next slide. So this is within the high-level meeting timeline that Sylvia was sharing as part of the process overview. This is within that. It's kind of a little more detailed. We're still working on, this is going to take some time to completely fill in all the details. But what we've done here is provided some overview of 4 key phases of public engagement that we're anticipating for this project. And this is where we will seek input at different points on phase 1, priority climate impacts, phase 2 on resiliency draft goals and policy ideas, phase 3 on priorities and criteria for greenhouse gas policy development, and then phase 4 kind of overall draft goal and policy ideas. And so we've estimated a time frame that we think some of these key public engagement opportunities will take place. So you see those here. And then we've also included some potential overarching questions that we could anticipate you asking of your community. Once we identify your public engagement activities, these are some overarching questions that you might start to think about taking back to your communities. And there will be opportunity within each of these phases to really talk about if there's another nuanced question or how these questions would be delivered, but wanted to start to give you a little picture of what it could look like, and then we'll explore these further. And then this could be a guide as you start to get into your work plan. Next slide. So for the work plan development, we're going to start to get into some nuts and bolts here. And again, please know as I go through these, because I do have to go a little bit quickly today. We're here to meet with you. We've got an optional link to schedule with us in the next week as you get a first draft. So keep that in mind as I go through these documents. Next slide. So this is an overview of the work plan template. You're going to use this to fill in the deliverable and, well, the task. You'll kind of fill in the task of public engagement, the activity you're going to do, and then the deliverable along with the delivery date and the cost. Now we've created a template for you that you'll be able to find on the EJC webpage. We'll give a link to that soon. And in that template, the tasks have a drop-down menu of all the different things that many of you included in your proposals, actually, all the different kinds of engagement activities that you might be able to do as tasks for this work. So you can select one of those drop-down menu items, or you could write in your own. But again, this is where we're going to work with you to help you complete this. And what we're hoping to do is get a first draft of this by March 1st, which I know doesn't sound like it's very far away, but the point of that will be to get something sort of on paper. It doesn't have to be perfect before our first meeting or our second meeting on March 4th. And so we'll work with you beyond March 4th. That's not going to be a final deadline. It's just a first draft, start to get a feel for how this template's working, what questions you have, and then what other support you need as you start to think through how to build this out. And that will happen at that March 4th meeting and throughout the month of March. We'll have time to really finalize this. This work plan template will ultimately become an approved work plan through the county, and it'll be part of your final document with your memorandum of agreement that will be submitted to the county, signed. You'll sign a memorandum of agreement stating that you'll complete these tasks and these deliverables approximately on these dates. And again, we'll have a scheduling link where we can meet with you between tomorrow, as early as tomorrow, through March 1st at noon when the first draft is due. Next slide. So then the budget template sheet, again, this is on the EJC webpage as a template that you can download. This will be for your organization's use and just information. It will not be submitted to the county, but we wanted to provide something that would help you kind of break out further tasks. So for example, the question that I think it was Anna, you asked about translation and interpretation. This is where you would really start to think about all the costs associated with delivering the specific activities and tasks that your organization is choosing to deliver. And that would roll up into a total cost that would be reflected on your work plan template, on your work plan that will be delivered to the county. So again, we're here to support you with this as needed. Some of you might have more questions, others might be ready to run with it, but anywhere in between, we can help you. Next slide. So how to complete this work plan? First, I put a little picture of that timeline, the public engagement timeline here, because that can be a helpful reference as far as when some of these different tasks, but different types of engagement will be going out, be available for you to share with your community. So we know it doesn't answer all the questions, but at least it's a start to think about what points you might be wanting to go out with different public engagement activities. And then again, use the menu of tasks that are listed in the work plan template that you can choose from. That might be a helpful guide for you. And then provide the cost estimates by task for your work plan. So this This work's going to be slightly different from the meeting invoices. When you attend meetings, that's more hourly based on the rates that were part of that memorandum, letter of agreement. This will be based on task that's in the work plan. And then again, the budget sheet won't be submitted, but you can use that as another tool to help you get to the work plan details. Next slide. So just some additional important information. At each of our monthly EJC meetings, so on March 4th, we'll start our more monthly cadence, once a month, first Monday of the month. You'll have an opportunity to provide project updates. At those meetings, we'll have a period of comment and time to share and hear what each other is up to within your individual organizations. You can share at that point, depending on what you have to share, you know, what updates and activities you've already accomplished at that point. And then we'll also have questions during those monthly meetings too. So another piece is the monthly invoices that you will submit for public engagement tasks. So this is in addition to the roughly monthly invoices that you'll be submitting for your meeting attendance and preparation. There are two different forms and you'll see those at this. Well, you're going to navigate to this link here at the bottom to get to EJC member forms and templates, but you'll see two types of invoices, one for meeting attendance and one for public engagement tasks. And so in addition to your meeting attendance invoices, you'll also, once public engagement activities start, you'll complete that invoice and include a public engagement activity form with supporting documentation. And all of these will need to be emailed to always just include Lauren, myself, and Jenna on all emails related to this work. And then there's also more to be said about the supporting documentation. We'll get into some more specifics about what kind of supporting documentation will be needed. And in the interim, if you can just plan to, once public engagement activities start, you'll want to CC Lauren, myself, and Jenna on all public emails that go out, whether you're sending it out or you're receiving responses back. And responding to those responses, you'll want to include us on all of that, because that does go into the public record that Jenna was mentioning before. This is kind of for the whole project, but it's going to get more detailed for the public engagement work we will be doing. And then, as I mentioned, all these templates that I've gone over very quickly are on the Environmental Justice Coalition webpage. If you scroll down to EJC member forms and templates, you'll see these documents. One caveat is that this public engagement activity form that I mentioned, it's not quite ready, so that will be coming soon. And also the memorandum of agreement for the public engagement work that will include your work plan, your finalized approved work plan. That draft MOA will be coming in the coming weeks. So we'll be sending a draft via email to you. Next slide. And we can keep going. Next one, next steps and some homework for you. So in addition to the homework that was already shared by Jenna, there's some specific items just for the EJC, and by March 1st, because we're on a quicker timeline here. So the first is to make sure you email a first draft of your work plan template to Lauren, Jenna, and myself by March 1st. And in doing so, you know, this is still just a draft, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but it will really help inform us about what you're thinking, what your questions might be, and how we might prepare best for the March 4th meeting on how to do additional work and support around these work plans. In the meantime, though, before March 1st, Lauren, myself, and Jenna would love to meet with you. It's optional. You do not have to meet with us, but we'll be sending an email with this scheduling link included where you can meet one-on-one with us to dive into that work plan and kind of answer any questions that you have. So in the meantime, open it up, download that work plan, start to play with it and fill it in as much as you would like, and or schedule an optional one-on-one with us. Lastly, is that this memorandum of agreement will be sent out in the coming weeks. So be looking for that email. It'll be a draft version of the MOA that you'll review. And then once that's been reviewed by everyone, it will go along with your completed approved work plan for a signed agreement with the county and this additional set of work. I think that's it.
That is, yeah. So why don't we open it up and thank you, Amy. I mean, I know y'all have gotten a lot today, but do want to just open it up for any questions. Gabriella, start with you.
Yes, thank you. I have a question about the public engagement. Do you have an idea of how many people we need to engage in every session? Like, do you have a requirement?
Within those phases, do you mean?
Yes, because so you have, so 2 in person, 1 virtual, right? So that's an example. So do you have a limit of how many people engage in those conversations?
We're really going to be looking to you because you will know your individual community, and you have constituents and community members that you already reach out to. So really, we want those work plans to reflect what makes the most sense for you, for your organization, and then for your community as well. So those were just examples. You don't have to follow that. Some may just send out a survey of a question we've already crafted for you via social media. You know, it might not actually end up on a public engagement activity work plan. It could be more streamlined than that. So those are the kinds of details, though, that we would be happy to talk through with you as you figure out, you know, what that means. We don't have any specific requirements, though, on numbers of people reached. It's more what's most important for your community.
Thank you.
Yeah, Karen.
Hi, actually, this is Lavita. Both me and Karen are listening in. So first I want to say thank you to Amy and Jenna and Lauren for helping, and also Nicole. We had some problems signing in, so this I was really grateful to your help. My main question is, like, we, in the application, we had a kind of outline what we're going to do, and I've already kind of put the phases. And I know that we need to use a template, but I also heard that there were some sheets or some documents that were not prepared yet. So, like, what is, like, exactly succinctly the next step? What do we need to download, and what do I need to fill out next, and what's available? Yeah, like, what's ready?
If you go to the, I don't have an easy way to just share my screen right now, but on the, maybe we can drop it into the chat. That would probably be helpful if someone can do that for me. You'll see a clear spot to go to for EJC member forms and templates. And in that space, you'll see the list of templates that are already available, finalized. There's only one that's not quite ready yet, and that you won't need to use until we've approved work plans by April. So don't worry about that one. I did need to mention it, but don't worry about that one too much. So next steps are to put a work plan together. If you have a template or something that works for you that covers what we're asking for in our template, you're more than, you're welcome to use that. We don't want you to recreate something new if you've already got something that works. And we do just need to make sure we're getting the pieces of information that we have to include. So if that work plan template works for you, great. If not, we're open to working with something that you already have. Does that help answer your question, Lavita?
Yeah, so you want all 3 things listed that are available, and they need to be completed in the first draft by the 1st of March.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lavita. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I think our last few minutes, and I recognize it's 5:50. I think it's Wednesday, although the days seem to be blending in. I did want to just provide some space. I just reflecting on how much I just appreciated the space that we've already had together for folks on the EJC and the time we got to spend hearing about you, learning about the work and the passion that you bring every single day to serve community. And I was hoping we could close out with I think our slide says inspiration. And maybe that is the right way to think about it. You know, I often reflect on the work, starting with purpose, right? Starting with spirit, right? The root of spirit, like what gives us breath, right? What do we hold as sacred as we do this work? And as you all are owning this moment of being a bridge and a connection and a relationship with the communities that you are part of and work with and serve, I wanted to create some space for us to reflect on that. So I'm gonna, as I always try to model, when I think about my purpose in this work, in my role as a facilitator, I really think about and hold sacred process that uplifts voices leading to the influence of outcomes, right? Not engagement for the sake of talking to people and making notes and numbers, but actually people's voices empowered through process to affect decisions and influence outcomes. That's something that in my role I hold as sacred. And so I'd love to ask folks either just to sit and reflect in that space of what you hold as sacred as you think about your work and your role, particularly as it comes to engagement, or put it in the chat if you'd like to share, or I'd like to invite you into this space to share with your colleagues. And I hope as we either sit in silent reflection or share with the group, that we can look back as we do this process, as you all do this process, as we go through this journey together, that we can look back on the end and really hold ourselves collectively responsible to ensure that we did our work through those values, right? That we led with our values, that we led with what we hold sacred. And so I'll just open that space in our last, 8 minutes or so. Levita or Karen, love to invite you. Karen, all right, let's invite you.
We just switched. So I'd like to say something about Black History Month. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, my community, me and my community. Who is my community? Well, I'm looking at my community right now. A community of people joined together to come together for a common purpose, and that is to see our city grow and change and love one another through the process, protect each other, respect each other, and be around one another and uplift. And so that's my reflection of what I see when I look at these beautiful faces and these hearts of people willing to do whatever it takes to see us grow together.
Much love. It was Karen. Thank you. Monica.
You're welcome.
I love you, Karen.
Thank
you for that. For me, it's not the me, it's the we. And I put in the chat a link to a article about healing systems, because we all carry trauma, and it's a universal part of the human experience, and it's an invisible force contributing to the stuckness of virtually all social systems. And so the healing power of relationships is perhaps the single greatest leverage point to fundamentally rewrite a system's behavior and the outcomes it produces. And what we practice at a small scale sets patterns for the whole system. And so for me, when I'm on there's my kiddo, mommy, saying mommy, daddy. But for me, when I'm on my deathbed and I'm looking back on my life, I want to say, was I kind to myself, to my body, to my mind, to my community, to my Mother Earth? Did I do something to benefit the community? And I want to say yes to all those things. I want to change the paradigm to where we all thrive in a flourishing web of life. And so that is my purpose, is to create that for me and for my children and for everyone, because we all matter.
There's our future member and organizer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gabrielle, please jump in.
Thank you. I agree with all my fellow colleagues here. Love you all. You know that. I think for me is the moral responsibility of doing something to better our environment and for the future that we're living to our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. I think it's our responsibility to do something and to be open-minded to what we're doing, and maybe take risks that many won't agree with us, but I think is the responsibility to do something for future generations, and serving the community that is so impacted by so many issues like immigration, like language access, developmental disabilities, and so many other issues. I think that's a big responsibility for me personally, and more being a mother of a child in the autism spectrum. I think is even one step further up from that. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela. Paris.
Hey y'all, and it's good to have the EJC team just all together here. Hey family. I have a couple thoughts and I'm really touched, so I'm like having a hard time getting back inside my body. But one first thought is that you asked us to reflect about what's centering for us in this space. What are we reflecting on? And this is a reflection I'll share that has been, I'm in this role now 3-4 months. So I've been coming into myself in my role at this organization. So I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and something that I've found to be like the most immense blessing and responsibility and honor, but also huge responsibility that I feel in my work, especially for the Fourth Lane Corridor, is that I am an accurate and appropriate voice for those that I represent that are so very diverse. I'm a BIPOC woman myself. I grew up low income. I've experienced homelessness, but I haven't lived the life of an immigrant, a refugee, an indigenous person. So I feel the weight very frequently on my shoulders to do this work with due diligence for who I represent. And I take that into every space, especially a space like this that will have effects not only for the community I look at every day, but for their kids and their kids' kids and their kids' kids. And the overwhelming shockwave of that responsibility is immense. So that's one, is just that this kind of space, the fact that I'm here in front of you all, all of the facts, just create to me how just very important it is that I do this work with diligence and with thought and with connection always to my community, or else I will not be doing it right. And then two is that just on a personal note, as a kid that grew up in rural Alabama that was very poor, that had a lot of nothing, that outdoors, nature was my purest escape. And it was my sovereign place. And I know that for our organization, we also work with and represent Indigenous people in their connection to this land, and the powers and the spirits within it are deeper than I can understand. And I just hold that in me while we do this work, and just how massively and ancestrally important it is to some people. For us, it's important for kids and grandkids. For some folks, it's important to their ancestors, like backwards timeline, and it's powerful. And nature has been a place for me to go and enjoy and to relish in and rejuvenate, and our community deserves that too. So just from a personal aspect. Yeah, thank you for letting me.
No, thank you for sharing all of that, Paris. Thank you. Juan, I see your hand. I'm going to center the EJ Coalition folks first, but I won't exclude you from this conversation. So I'll just offer, if anybody else wants to bring anything else into the space, I'll offer that opportunity. So I'll take a second, and thank you. I love seeing the hearts just flow through the chat. We need more of that in our daily lives. Juan, let's open it up for you. Would you like to share?
First, listen to a powerful woman. It's always I learn a lot from them, but also like a community organizer, working with some farm workers that suffering the climate change and working under a very bad condition, especially the during the wildfire during the summer. So this is important, be part of the this team, so we can write these voices. Also, what I learned working with them, where there is an environmental injustice, always there is a social injustice. So everything got together. So thank you. That's it.
Well, thank you, Juan, and thanks for centering our siblings that are doing that difficult work in the fields and farms. Well, this feels like a wonderful way to close out our meeting. So I appreciate those of you that did share. For those of you who sat with reflection, who added some love and inspiration in the chat. So I appreciate y'all, and it makes me think, Cornell West said, don't forget that justice is what love looks like in public. And just reminding ourselves as we do our work together, right, why we do the work, how we do the work is going to matter. And so I'm just really sitting with gratitude for what you're sharing. As I told y'all when we had our individual conversations, I'm so moved by the relationship that we're already establishing and the love that you all share with each other. And I know that's going to extend not just to the community, but it's going to extend to our work. So with that, just appreciate all of you so much and look forward to seeing you in just a couple of weeks. And y'all know where to find me if you want to connect otherwise. So any last thoughts from Clark County team or Jenna, Amy?
You'll hear from us by email tomorrow. So look for all those links. And if you have any questions about, wait, what am I supposed to be doing? Just please ask. We know there's sort of a lot as we get started. So thank you again for all of your time today.
Great. Appreciate everybody. Much love. Take care. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thank you.
And Grant, you'll close out the recording.